The Human Genome Project was an international effort to sequence all of human DNA. Scientists have sequenced other plants and animals, but they have never attempted to sequence humans because that task was insurmountably large and costly. But Big Pharma promised the world that if taxpayers paid for the mapping out of the entire genome, they could usher in a new era of medicine and end all disease. They thought that once someone mapped out all the genes, they would finally have the complete human blueprint, and they could start to patent it and make drugs from it. Or so they thought. In sequencing other forms of life, scientists found a wide range for the number of genes. Some researchers predicted there had to be at least 300,000 genes in humans to explain the diversity and complexity we have. Scientists were baffled and confused by the results that the human genome only contains 21,000 genes, much less than an onion or grape. To add insult to injury, only 1.7 of those genes were protein encoding DNA, and the other 98.3% they misclassified as useless or junk DNA. And what of Big Pharma's promise to end all disease? The $2.6 billion project has failed to deliver all but a few scraps. What they didn't understand is that humans are not composed of a single set of genes. We, in actuality, are a superorganism containing trillions of other microbes. As of the making of this video, 57% of the cells in your body are other non-human single-celled organisms that you need to live. Outside the brain, it is the most complex system we have, called the enteric nervous system, or simply the second brain. As a superorganism, we don't have a mere 21,000 or even 300,000 genes, but somewhere between 8 and 20 million genes. That's 380 to 950 times more DNA than our own. This makes much more sense as we know humans are more complex than an onion, grape, or water flea. Big Pharma still anxiously took all the data from the Human Genome Project and started to attempt to make drugs and patent them. However, you can estimate how effective something would be if it only targeted 1/380th of an organism. You can see why pharmaceuticals directed at affecting the human genes were ineffective. Not only that, but they have now discovered that most pharmaceuticals are toxic to the single-celled organisms that make up your microbiome. So to make effective treatments, we focus on how we can best treat and support the 99% of your body, the microbes. Prevalence. The vast majority of the microbes in our bodies are unknown, but we do estimate that there are at least 5 classifications in the microbiome: archaea, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and viruses. And they've got a very bad reputation, which is totally unjustified. It is estimated that there are over 2 billion unique species. To date, out of those, only 1,407 of them are known to be pathogenic. This means that 99.9999% of microbes are commensal or good and are helpful in a very direct and indirect way. In fact, if you lost just the viruses in your body, you would be dead in a day and a half. 8% of the human genome is retrograde virus DNA. In order to keep us alive, this virus DNA is encoded straight into our own. Microbes are everywhere. Each breath we inhale 10,000 bacteria, 9,000 viruses, 10 fungi spores, and more. 1 teaspoon of tap water contains 400,000 bacteria and other viruses. 1 teaspoon of seawater contains about 5 million bacteria and 50 million viruses. 1 teaspoon of blood contains about 5,000 bacteria and can contain millions of viruses. Think you can avoid them by going outside? Well, 800 million viruses per square meter land on the Earth every single day. This is 555,000 viruses a minute. 1 teaspoon of ordinary soil can contain about 240 million bacteria, 600 million viruses, 400 million fungi, 20 million archaea, 4 million algae, 400,000 protozoa, 40,000 nematodes, and possibly other unknown organisms. And they are all vastly good. They did a study where they washed out a cut with sterile saline solution before bandaging it up. They washed another cut out with normal tap water. The cut that was washed out with sterile saline solution had a 200% higher infection rate than the cut that was washed out with normal tap water. In another study, a cut that was washed out with saliva had the lowest infection rates of any solution. Perhaps this is evolutionary why if we cut our finger we innately desire to put it in our mouths. Animals lick their wounds for the same reason. It's because the vast majority of bacteria, viruses, and other single-celled organisms in our microbiome aid healing in a very real way. Some viruses have little hooks that go into the mucus that provide another layer of protection against bad bacteria. Other viruses kill unwanted bacteria in the gut, mouth, lungs, and all over to help prevent infection. They can hunt and kill cancer cells, reverse genetic diseases, cure hemophilia. Viruses can also replace good bacteria in the gut if they go missing. It's time to stop treating them like they should be avoided and killed at all cost, and start to get as many of them in and on the body as possible. Because, and this is not said lightly, almost every single disease has been directly linked to the contents of the microbiome. Causation and correlation. They have found that people with all of these non-communicable diseases and more have something in common. Every single one of them have a less diverse microbiome than those who do not suffer from them. They have also found that people with any of these autoimmune diseases and conditions all have something in common as well. Every single one of them have a less diverse microbiome than those who do not suffer from them. And yes, they found a direct link to the people that suffer from all of these psychological maladies. Each of them have concentrations of microbes that they have identified are missing from people that don't suffer from these problems. Also, if you are lacking in certain strains of bacteria, you are twice as likely to attempt suicide. You can now guess what is in common with people that have these pathogens and suffer symptoms and people that don't suffer from them. Two people can have the same pathogens in their bodies, but one has a much more diverse microbiome and they don't suffer any symptoms. Whether or not you get sick or experiencing any symptoms are directly correlated with the diversity of your microbiome. Microbiota in children. Having a diverse microbiome is critically important to infants as their immune system is in a temporary training mode. In efforts to get rid of any and all evil germs, new parents often use antibacterial soaps, cleaning supplies, and disinfectant wipes in their homes and on their children. They also limit their children's interaction with others, never let their children be on any unsterilized floor, or let them play in the dirt. Compounding this problem, doctors have been negligent in overprescribing antibiotics, even when they are not warranted. This has led to unintended consequences of a hyper-sterilized environment, which has been directly linked to countless diseases, especially childhood leukemia. There are countless other links as well, such as being a colicky baby. They analyzed the gut microbiome of 100 babies. 50 were colicky and 50 were not colicky. And they discovered that all 50 who cried all the time were from much cleaner environments, their mothers ate less diversity in foods, or they were bottle-fed and thus had a less diverse microbiome. Children with a less diverse microbiome suffer many more problems than those whose parents feed them a much more diverse diet. The birth canal is nature's way of pre-populating the newborn's microbiome. One of the worst things that can happen to the microbiome is the baby to be born via C-section. The probability of all diseases increased by an order of 1 full magnitude to these children that echoes decades into the future, long into adulthood, even influencing when they die. Adults are 48% more likely to be overweight or obese, and they may live up to 10 years shorter unless deliberate efforts are made. The reason is that there are fast closing windows of development for the microbiome which needs to be diversely populated for maximum health and protection against the lifelong of diseases. For example, infant mice that were given autism could be 100% reversed if they increased the quantity and quality of the microbiome before a developmental window was closed, 6 to 9 weeks in mice. We don't know exactly when this window closes in humans. It could be slightly different for everyone, but it's somewhere around 3 years of age before many behaviors of autism become permanent. Rebiosis, overwhelming with good. All humankind needs to reframe how we think about microbes, how the drugs and products we use can affect them, and how best to embrace and support them. Western medicine's theory is to kill everything that is bad at all costs and hope for a good outcome. However, in their successful attempts to kill everything that is bad, they are also killing everything that is good to our own detriment. Think of a brand new lawn. It's true you can spray poison over the entire lawn each day in successful efforts to kill off any weeds, but you're going to kill off the grass as well. However, if you support the grass, it will choke out any weeds trying to take root. Therefore, the correct approach is to try and amplify and strengthen all the good. Repopulating the microbiome is called rebiosis, and there are 2 pathways. FMT stands for fecal microbiota transplant. It takes some of the trillions of properly diverse microbes out of the fecal material from a healthy and happy donor and transplants them into the recipient. The results of this transplant are near miraculous. In a trial against pharmaceuticals, they stopped the study early because FMT was so effective. It was unethical to try and continue using drugs with very low efficacy and dangerous side effects. It also shows amazing promise for countless other diseases as well. It is so effective that the FDA had to make it a drug because it did actually cure patients, and legally only drugs or surgery can cure, even though they were just higher concentrations of normal microbes found in nature everywhere. Examples of FMT results. Weight and obesity. When an overweight person is given the microbes of a thin person, the overweight person loses weight rapidly with zero change in their diet. The opposite is also true. When a thin person is given the microbes of an overweight person with no change in diet, the thin person becomes overweight. This points to the diversity in microbes being a very important factor in people that are overweight, not the quantity of food they eat. Mental illness. People with certain types of depression and anxiety, when they are given the microbes of a happy person, the depressed or anxious person's symptoms start to disappear with zero change in their diet, lifestyle, or philosophy. The opposite is also true. When a happy person is given the microbes of a depressed or anxious person, the happy person may start getting depressed and anxious. This points to the diversity of microbes being an important factor in mental health. This has led to a new field called Psychobiotics. Other personality traits have been tied to the diversity in the microbiota. In certain mice, there are skittish mice, fearless mice, shy mice, and highly sociable mice. When they transfer the microbes, the behavior follows the gut biome. While humans are more complex than mice, it is 100% certain that the microbes in your gut can significantly influence your behavior, mental, and physical health. After FMT, there is a honeymoon period of about 2 months where no dietary changes are required, but the benefits start to fade away after the microbe starts to revert back to normal, unless they start to feed the new microbes what they like to eat, which is plant fiber. This brings us to the second method of rebiosis: supplementation and consumption. Rather than implanting or consuming someone else's fecal material into your digestive tract, there are easier, cheaper ways for rebiosis. While eating fermented foods and consuming quality probiotics can help you start on the path to recovery, you need to feed the new microbes so they can get a foothold. Making the new microbes stay is the problem. In 2017, there was a jam-packed standing room only lecture in Chicago. It was Digestive Disease Week, the biggest meeting of gastroenterologists, surgeons, nutritionists, and researchers in the world. There were 20,000 from 150 countries. They had gathered from around the world to hear Dr. Rob Knight speak, the man behind the American Gut Project that he created in 2012, the largest and most diverse study of microbes and microbiomes from the industrialized world. Dr. Knight was at the podium to announce the greatest predictor of a healthy microbiome using the data from the American Gut Project database over the last 5 years. This announcement would redefine how we think about gut health. His findings? The single greatest predictor of a healthy gut microbiome is diversity of plants in one's diet, which makes perfect sense. So how do we do this? 1. Consume microbe and fiber-containing plants. Dr. Knight said that to maximize gut health, we just have to consume 30 different plants a week, and fresh herbs count as 2. Having a healthy gut microbiome isn't about specific food quality or quantity, or about being a vegan or omnivore. It's all about diversity. Besides being good for you, and besides consuming different plant fiber, it's also about eating more microbes. Different microbes grow on different plants. For example, one apple not treated with pesticides contains more than 100 million microbes. Even just a mouthful of any organic fruit, grain, or vegetable has hundreds of millions of microbes that your gut needs. Diversity is key. While the USDA recommends 25 grams of fiber for women and 31 for men, that may be fine for the body, but it's not enough to feed the diverse group of microbes. For example, the most perfect food, breast milk, the third most prevalent nutrient, isn't even digestible to mammals. It is all to feed the microbes. 2. Fermented foods. Start adding healthy fermented foods into your diet and consume some each day. Maybe even at each meal if you are ill. Preferably one that is made yourself or produced locally. Arguably, the best probiotic there is kimchi, a Korean spicy cabbage. While most fermented foods and supplements have only a handful of diverse strains, kimchi has been reported to have over 300 strains. Just on a sheer diverse number basis, that's not better than any probiotic, it's better than every probiotic combined. If purchased off the shelf, there are tens of thousands of dollars worth of probiotics in a single bottle of kimchi. See if you can't find a Korean restaurant or market that makes some in your area. 3. Eat dirt and live. Many pregnant women have a desire to eat dirt, chalk, or clay. This is a worldwide phenomenon classified as geophagy. If you remember that even 1 teaspoon of soil contained over 1 billion helpful microbes. And yes, there are even books about it. They aren't actually advocating that you eat dirt in any significant quantities, but they are just pointing out that it's full of healthy microbes. In utero, the baby is asking for these benefits of the microbes, and the mother is intuitively seeking out these substances that have these microbes, which explain why pregnant women often desire to eat these items. Dirt is so good for you. This is also why people who garden live much longer and healthier lives. So part of your plan is play in the garden. Get your hands dirty. Breathe it in. Play in other people's gardens. Eat organic produce from each seller at a farmer's market. Don't vigorously wash off organic or garden-grown plants before you eat them. That dust on them is microbe gold. Another part of your plan is forest or nature bathing. When you walk in nature, you inhale lots of dust and plant particles, chock full of our friends, the microbes. We know that touching, interacting, breathing, and walking all around these plants and dirt help repopulate and increase our microbiome. The magic number is an average of 17 minutes a day, being in and interacting with nature to help repopulate these microbes your body needs to thrive. These strains of microbes can be found nowhere else. They are not located in any supplement. You must interact with nature to get them. You may also consider getting a dog. People with dogs are immuno-healthier than people who don't. Part is psychological, the other part is having a dog that rolls around outside increases the entire household's microbiome diversity. So feel free to vigorously interact with every park, farm, beach, plant, forest, body of water, pile of dirt, and furry friend you can. Dysbiosis, what to avoid. You don't want to undo all your work, so these are things to avoid. 1. Antibiotics. It's true sometimes these can be life-saving in certain situations, but it can take up to a year or more to undo the damage that one round of antibiotics can have on your microbiome. If it's at all possible to avoid these, please do so. A study published in the Journal of American Medical Association provided evidence that the use of antibiotics is directly associated with a 200% increased risk in certain types of cancers. 2. Besides antibiotics, the number one worst possible thing that destroys the gut microbe diversity is psychological stress. This immediately makes the unwanted microbes flourish and start to kill off the good. This is why you always feel stress in your gut. It's your body telling you that something is very wrong and to knock it off. So even bad microbes are helping you in a very real way. The best method of reducing stress by permanently rewiring your brain so you don't get stressed out is resonant frequency breathing, which you can learn about in another video linked below. 3. Don't ever use any antibacterial or antiviral soaps or hand disinfectants. Normal soap and water will do. You don't want to wipe out all your friends and create superbugs. 4. Mouthwash. Using an alcohol-based mouthwash twice a day increases the probability of getting diabetes by 55%. The microbes in your mouth are vastly important to your overall health too. 5. Avoid all fake sugars. They immediately start to kill off the good microbes in your gut and make the pathogenic ones flourish. High fructose corn syrup also makes the villi longer and more able to absorb more calories, so you will gain more weight with the exact same diet. And the last tip is, if you can help it, don't be born via C-section. Conclusion. Western medicine thinks that exposure to dirt, germs, and living in a non-sterilized environment will make you sick. However, the opposite is true. In fact, they officially call it the slum paradox in India. These people that live with dirt floors in India have less infection and chronic diseases than their literal next-door neighbors who dwell in modern housing. Since they lack refrigeration, they ferment lots of their own food. And now you know why these people are so much immuno-healthier than their city-dwelling counterparts. It's not a paradox at all if you understand the science of the microbiome. As you can see, gut microbiome diversity is foundational to your overall health. However, rebiosis is not without its side effects. Almost every single other malady you have may start to disappear, including anxiety, depression, chronic pain, stomach and digestive issues. Your skin will improve, your eyes will get brighter, your brain fog will disappear, you will lose weight, you will have less aches and pains, wounds will heal faster, and many autoimmune symptoms will lessen to disappear. So be aware and watch out for these changes.